gentlemen. Chuck Mahath, Tensiam Nisiai, Stomach Siai Kuyan Sna. I wish to acknowledge the Tawasin First Nation on whose traditional territory we are today and thank them for allowing us to gather on their ancestral lands. My name is Ian Tate and I am Executive Director of the Delta Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here to our May Networking and Learning Luncheon featuring our special guest speaker, Manly McLachlan, the President of the British Columbia Construction Association, who's traveled from Chicago to Alberta to where else?
Well, right back here.
Right back here, and then downtown Vancouver here, and then back downtown this evening. So, and at home tonight. Good. And where's that?
Victoria.
Oh, good on you. I tell you, racking up the air miles. But we're delighted that he's touched down, as it were, and is here with us today. I'd also like to acknowledge our sustaining annual sponsors and partners that are here in the room with us, and those that weren't able to be with us. Our gold sponsor, Port Metro Vancouver. Our other gold sponsor, Delta Cable, represented today by Christina Colicchio. Delighted to have you here. Our silver sponsor team, Alpha Aviation. Century Group, represented today by Phil Hussain, the Vice President of Finance for Century Group, along with your team. Phil, delighted to have you here. Thank you. Global Container Terminals Canada. Grosvenor Americas, Quantum Polytechnic University, MK Delta Lands Group, represented by Teresa Cooper. Nice to have you here. Polygon Homes, West Shore Terminals. Our program partners, Adisa Benefit Solutions, and First Data, represented today by Carm Bassi. Carm, great to have you here. If anybody's looking for merchant payment services, First Data and Carm are the people to see. And our media sponsors, Delta TV, Immediate Images, and Delta Optimist, represented by General Manager Dave Hamilton. So please join with me in thanking our sponsors, partners, and media partners. And we have a head table, and I'd like to introduce them as well. Past board director, I had to think there, Debbie, sorry. Past director of the Delta Chamber of Commerce, and now one half of a powerhouse duo, Debbie and Steve Kemp from Kemp Construction. We also have Dave Hamilton, again, who was introduced earlier, chair of the Delta Chamber of Commerce and general manager of the Delta Optimist. Manly McLachlan, our keynote speaker, who will be introduced more formally, Teresa Cooper from MK Delta Lands, and Christina Colicchio from Delta Cable. Please give them a round of applause as well. And in terms of formal introductions, that comes to me. Our keynote speaker today is Manly McLachlan, President of British Columbia Construction Association. British Columbia Construction Association is the largest and most inclusive construction organization in the province of British Columbia. It represents over 2,000 non-union and union contractors active in all sectors of the industry, but primarily focused in industrial, commercial, and institutional construction projects. Their members include general contractors, trade contractors, and suppliers, large and small, from all regions of the province. Under Manly's leadership, the association has successfully developed the Skilled Trades Employment, or STEP program, which includes the Immigrant Skilled Trades Employment Program, STEP for Women, Aboriginal Skilled Trades Employment Program, and the EU STEP program. I guess that's Economic Union, European Union? I got that right. Anyway, this multi-targeted, multi-million-dollar program has assisted over 4,000 people to placements in employment and training in the construction sector. Prior to taking the position with BCCA in March 2004, Manly managed the Saskatchewan Construction Association for 9 years and is highly regarded as having expanded and solidified their influence. Manly is an ex officio director of the Council of Construction Associations, the Canadian Council for Innovation in Construction, and is a committee representative to a number of Canadian Construction Association national committees, including Human Resource and Research and Innovation Committees. He is also the chairman of the Asia Pacific Gateway Skills Table. Manly has actively contributed to his community, serving as both a fundraiser and representative for numerous not-for-profit organizations, such as the United Way and the Canadian Diabetes Association. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Saskatchewan, and eminently qualified to talk about the topic that's, I'm sure, near and dear to his heart, and has taken him from Detroit to Alberta to downtown Vancouver to here to downtown Vancouver and to Victoria again later this evening. Please join me in welcoming the whirlwind, Manly McLachlan. Your weapons. sir.
Yeah, there you go.
And please make sure your mobile devices are turned to vibrate, or you will be buying a foursome in our upcoming golf tournament. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, and thank you for giving me some time today out of what I know are incredibly busy schedules that you all live by. So, Ian, we got to get you an updated bio. Just a couple of small changes. The STEP program, you're going to hear a little bit about STEP earlier on. We hit a milestone at the end of March where we've now exceeded 10,400 placements with folks in the industry. And I am going to introduce some of our staff here later, but Faith and Jazrit are a major element here in Vancouver in making all that kind of stuff happen. So Ian did give me the afternoon. I've only got about 180 slides here, so I think we'll move through them as quick as we can. But I do want to just make one comment. I know you mentioned my background in Saskatchewan, and I'm always reminded on an occasion like this, you know, I lived in Regina and I did a lot of work up in Saskatoon, and I think for those of you that have been in Saskatchewan, you know that, you know, that's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive depending on how fast you want to go, and it's pretty flat and there's not much to think and not much to do, but lots to think about. And I have a really good friend, John Gormley, who runs a news talk radio program. So I used to listen to John every morning driving up, and I remember one morning listening to one of his callers say that if you were going to speak with authority on anything in Saskatchewan, you had to have an agricultural background. So I get paid to speak with authority on a few things, like I am today, but I certainly don't have an agricultural background, but I got a really good friend who's a vet. So I thought, I'm just going to hook up with my vet friend, and I'll go spend a weekend, a Saturday, and get some agricultural background. So the first farm we go to, the farmer's got a cow in the barn that's not doing well. My buddy and I go in, and he looks at the cow, and he sends me back to the truck to get his case, and I bring it back in, and he gets an inoculation already and gives this cow an inoculation, and we're all done. And the farmer says to my buddy, the vet, so what do I owe you? And my buddy says, well, look, it's $100 for my services and $25 for the dope I used. So the farmer digs out his wallet and hands him 100 and gives me 25. So keep that in mind as we work our way through. So I am going to talk about our little, one of our themes has been around shift, build, and grow. And I think those three words really summarize the environment that the industry, construction industry here in BC has been working within for well over 10 years now. And BCCA does play kind of a unique role. As Ian stated, we're unique because we have 4 regional associations that make up our membership. It's an integrated membership structure. So when if you join the Vancouver Regional Construction Association, and we've got some good folks from VRCA that you can talk to about membership when we're done, your membership dues actually buy membership in the provincial organization and flow on to the Canadian Construction Association. So it's a full integrated membership. And you can see that we do cover the province. BCCA North out of Prince George, Vancouver Island, Victoria and Nanaimo are the main offices. And then the southern interior, which is Kamloops, Kelowna, Penticton, and points east and west in the Okanagan. So we were founded in 1969, been around for a little bit of time. And our goal is simply to be the voice for provincial industry matters. And we do try to focus on major concerns of the industry, and we rely on feedback from our directors. So we have 13 directors that manage our processes, and each of those 4 regions have the ability to appoint directors. They're not elected, they're appointed from each of the regions. So we have a pretty good perspective on what's happening across the province and what the needs are. So we currently have a staff of 18 based in Victoria. That's our executive team. We've got our administrative support. Our accounting team is there. Main office for the Skilled Trades Employment Program. We've got a fabulous marketing group that we've assembled over the last couple of years. And I'm going to show you, Jonathan and I were trying to get a couple of videos to run, so we're probably going to miss 2 videos, but you can go online and have a look at them. And we've got one video that we put together. You'll see the work that those folks do. So as mentioned, about 2,000 companies. Advocacy is one of the big things that we do, and we divide our advocacy roles up between the local associations or regional associations, where they deal with local and municipal government. we may get pulled in on a procurement issue as required, but we really focus on the provincial government and the provincial agencies. And then, of course, CCA is our representative in Ottawa, and we have a great working relationship with the office in Ottawa. So advocacy is literally, when I started 20 years ago, my kids asked me, so what are you going to do, Dad? Like, what's a construction association? And the best I could come up with is I said, well, look, you got to think the association is kind of the lifeblood of the industry. And regulation and legislation and those types of things can sometimes be viruses that negatively impact the industry. So the association is kind of the white blood cell that goes in and tries to look after those things. So I think that analogy is sort of held as we move forward. So regional representation is critical. You can see the breakout across the province. Our membership, probably not unlike the membership in the chamber, I can tell you that this makeup is very similar right across Canada, where 85% of our members have less than 10 employees. So while we have the big guys that join and look after their interests and help us look after their interests, really it's the interests of the smaller contractors that drive where we go. We survey the industry. We've now completed 2 back-to-back surveys over 2 years, and have had about 1,000 responses to that survey, and some of the numbers I'm going to show you come directly from that. And some of the numbers are startling and some of them won't be. The one on the, your right here, 73% of the respondents of our members said they're going to be hiring this year. So we're trying to get a gauge on what's the status of the industry, what's the opportunity, and what are they thinking about the opportunity. Membership's pretty stable. 62% have been in business for over 20 years, and 39% have been members of the association for over 10 years. We've discovered 5 key areas, and we've built our strategic plan around addressing those 5 key areas. So skilled workforce, profitability, competition and fair bidding. Clearly, liquefied natural gas is one of the things, and I don't know how many even picked up on it this morning, but the Premier announced an MOU with Pacific Northwest to build a plant. So much for speculation. It looks like we've moved one big step closer to an LNG industry, and it's clearly going to create some challenges, as you'll see in a few moments. And then youth engagement is the last strategic area that we're focused on. We run a variety of programs. So you've heard a bit about the STEP program. Bid Central is an online document management, distribution. These are construction documents, distribution system, and an online bidding system where trade contractors bid to general contractors can bid to owners. And it's, I can tell you, it's not just because we built it. We have a great company we work with, Infinite Source Systems, but that system has, it's turned that whole business process on its ear. We're leading the country in the implementation of online bidding. We have a couple of projects that that we operate, Project Shop Class, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of my presentation. We created a hire guide working with the Immigrant Employment Council for employers looking to hire landed immigrants. And that guide it's online. It was a pretty extensive production, and I think you'll find that it's quite handy. We do surveys. We're collecting data now to help us make good decisions. We've generated a number of papers. We were very successful with a paper we produced 2 years ago. It was just called Open, Fair, and Transparent. And it dealt with issues that we'd been dealing with provincial government agencies in how they conduct their process to buy construction services. And the end result of that paper was the creation of something that's called the Deputy Minister's Industry Infrastructure Forum. So we now meet quarterly with the deputy ministers of the 6 capital ministries. They're the folks who make decisions around capital procurement in those ministries. And we're working with them to rewrite something called the Capital Asset Management Framework, which lays out how agencies should be dealing with BC businesses when they're buying services from them. So it's a major piece and a major accomplishment, and we're happy that government is looking at this as a significant asset for them to rewrite their procurement practices, and although it takes a long time to get stuff to work through government, as I'm sure most of you folks know. So here's one of the things we did in the survey is we left lots of space in the survey for comments. And about 70% of the respondents do write stuff in. And so these are just some of the things that relate to, these are some of the comments that helped us shape our priority list. And you know, it's clear as you read them, you'll see that there are concerns with how do we get to young people? How do we convince young people that there are opportunities? And we're working on that process. So between Project Shop Class STEP and the one piece I did pass through quickly, FSWBC, which is the Foreign Skilled Worker Program. Kim, where's Kim sitting? There she is. Kim Kravatin is our resident, she's our resident immigration consultant. She's fully licensed. And the service that we provide there is to help you as employers navigate through that whole process of finding someone offshore and bringing them into the country through the various ways that you can do that. And so with all of our programs, we literally start local. So that means we're working in the communities where there may be major projects, whether it's Fort St. John, Fort St. James, whether it's Vancouver. We try to connect local folks with job opportunities in their local area adjacent to the project. And so STEP is a demand-side driven program. It represents the needs of employers, and it means that we're different than everybody else because we don't provide training for the sake of training. We actually take people, do an assessment, connect them with a job opportunity, and then we may apply some training to make sure that they're more employable. And we know that that works because in our follow-up, we know that about 85% of the people that we place actually stay employed. The next place we go is to look in other areas around, not just British Columbia, but the other areas of Canada. And then our offshore, the international piece, we just describe it as responsible sourcing. Now there's a reason why the federal government has reacted the way it has to the bringing folks in from other jurisdictions. And there's been a number of players, we've all seen them in the news, that have not been responsible. And unfortunately, we're all paying the price for that. So we've got a great process and good relationship with both the federal and provincial agencies. And you know, there are probably people wondering why the hell are we doing this, because our fees are not anywhere as close to what you would have to. I think it's $1,000 basically is the most you could pay for the work that we would do with you. So we know that that's going to be a big piece. Not the complete piece, but it's going to be part of the piece that we're going to need to utilize in order to find the workers that we're going to need to meet not only our needs now, but the needs when these big projects. So I mentioned earlier, STEP, we've had 47 staff, we're including 27 placement specialists. They make about 6,000 points of contact a year with employers, and that's a critical piece for us. Again, there's nobody else out in the marketplace doing that, so we know where the needs are, we know where the opportunities are. And you can see the slide's a little bit late, a little bit old. As of December 31st, we were at 9,100 placements. We ended the year at 10,400. This is one of the videos that wouldn't fire up. So this is the roadmap that we follow. And if there's a message that I could leave with you as employers, particularly construction employers, when you're talking to elected folks, just remind them that while there's a huge emphasis on apprenticeship, you can't be an apprentice until you actually have a job. And that's a pretty critical message. So, you know, job readiness is one thing. You've got to get your job, apprenticeship, and then training follows, and that's where trade qualification, that's where your career literally starts in the industry. And so this is a theme that we work on for virtually every occasion that we're talking to decision makers in government. Right now, again, profitability is a huge issue. And we get this from the survey results, and I hear it virtually every board meeting. So 1 in 3 of the respondents cited profitability as their single biggest business challenge. You know, they're going into contracts with 2% profit. You're all business people. You're not sustainable if you're going in at 2%. And this is going to be an ongoing challenge, combined with the other big worry, which is about, am I going to get paid on time? And so there's a big push now coming for, from a number of sectors, a big call to actually embed in some form of legislation the requirement to pay within a prescribed time period. And so prompt payment legislation is certainly on our agenda, and it's part of the work that's being, the issues that are being worked on at the Deputy Ministers Forum. And so I'm sure you can all relate to the various comments that are here. Competition and fair bidding, this is an issue that's been around as long as I've been with the organization, although people feel that there's going to be a larger and more competitive market that they're going to be working in, and particularly looking back over 2 years. We asked the question, are you interested in pursuing work outside your region? And 40% of the respondents said that they were highly interested. And so that's a bit of a change, and I can tell you that things were a little slow over in the southern interior over the last year or two, and they have had the highest number of respondents that acknowledge they're working in other jurisdictions. And of course, northern BC is where folks are traveling to. There's a lot of concern about the international firms that are here in the province now, that will be here in the province, and some fear that you know, the large international companies are going to get the projects. I can tell you that there will be large international companies running LNG projects. It's the nature of that, how those projects are built. But we're working as hard as we can to connect local suppliers, local contractors with the firms that are going to be managing those major projects. So Bid Central is something that we put together. I mentioned a little bit earlier, Jonathan Smallwood's at the back of the room. John's our business development manager, and he lives and breathes Bid Central. We describe it as BC's largest construction bidding marketplace. The system literally has been designed so that we've eliminated your ability to submit a non-compliant bid. And so you're saying, well, how does that work? Well, we've taken the old bid depository and made it an online automated system. And so the same way you can't buy a ticket from an airline until you tell them what day you want to fly, you can't submit your bid until you've filled in all the mandatory fields that have been created in the bid form. And so I know Mike Demers from Jenkins Marsban Logan will tell, I've heard him say, that the number of legal cases around non-compliant bids have virtually disappeared in the province of BC. And we know that 200 and, what are we up to, about 235, 240 projects now, just in the trade contractor to general contractor bidding system, which we call BOBS, the Bid Central Online Bidding System for Subtrades. Typically, when that was a paper-based system, we would reject upwards of 25 to 30% of the bidders because somebody forgot to sign their bond, or somebody forgot to acknowledge that they read addendas 7 through 9, and you were therefore offside. So this system now, after over 4,500 bidders and 200 and some projects, we've eliminated that possibility. So we can go to owners and say, look, this system is as secure as online banking, and the beauty of it is it produces a report within moments of the bid closing that general contractors can, it's a spreadsheet, the general contractors can migrate into their other bidding software. So it's a pretty neat system. We've partnered with the Construction Association of Nova Scotia, and we're working with them to run the identical system in Nova Scotia, so we can literally say we're from coast to coast. It's a bit of a gap in the middle. But the reality is they just closed their first project last month, and I would be lying if I didn't say it wasn't without some hiccups, but we got through it, we got it fixed, and it was a successful bid closing. Once again, it's too bad the video wouldn't run. So we know that we've closed over $1.4 billion in public and private and by invitation only projects through our system. And we have a really interesting and close relationship with BC Bid. So we're quite pleased with what we've been able to do there. So youth engagement is the final priority, if you will, for our organization. And I need to say I have no I had nothing to do with the little icon in the corner. And it's kind of funny because the guys that put all this stuff together are all young guys in the marketing area, so it's their deal. But you know, right now, part of our challenge is that 1 in 85 kids graduating from high school go directly into the construction trades. And in order to meet the needs of the industry that we know today, we need to get that to 1 in 5. And that in itself is a huge is a huge challenge. So youth engagement, the employers in our survey said 75% of them said that they feel BC youth are not aware of the opportunities that exist in the trades, and they've got some things I think that are accurate to say about that. You know, they're trying to create awareness. But this individual said that their colleagues or the students' parents frequently derail those efforts. And I think that speaks to a cultural challenge that we need to address here in the province. That, you know, I think it's the ditch digger mentality is the root of the problem. Everybody sees, you know, the big, dumb, dirty guy working on a construction site. They don't want their kids to do that. Well, you know, we know that's not necessarily the situation. You know, it's a great time to be entering into the industry. There's lots of, it's a transition, and there are some big rewards. So I want to just, before I go on to this shop class video, and I'm very close to being done, the cultural shift that's required, I believe, has to do with families, but I think it also has to do with the role of employers and clearly the role of the education and training system. So the province of BC instituted the Skills for Jobs Blueprint. How many folks are familiar with that kind of terminology? So it's a major re-engineering of the education system from K to 12 and on into high school and on into the university and the college system. And it's the first time a government anywhere has taken such a dramatic shift away from the academic stream, and they're trying to create direction for students to get into the skilled trades. And everything that I've talked about today, that we do with STEP, that we do with our other programs, all support that transition. So there is a significant cultural shift that needs to take place. I've had the occasion to speak about this. I was at a Conference Board of Canada event about a year ago, and it was fun. It was their first skilled trades and post-secondary education conference. So there's about a dozen presidents of universities from Eastern Canada there, and many of them didn't like what I had to say, because I said there's 4 things we need to be very much aware of. One is relevance. The training needs to be relevant to the job opportunities. Why are we training people for jobs that don't exist? So even though the Dean of the College of Education at UBC takes me to task on this, because he says all of his graduates work, the reality is there's only 800 job openings in the education system for the 3,200 graduates that come out every year. And I asked the question, why are we doing that? So relevance is the first thing that we need to look at. Revenue is the second piece, and the government's slowly working around rationalizing how they're spending their dollars to get trades training done in an efficient way. And I'll give you one example of the things they've corrected. In the past, usually trades training takes place, apprenticeship training takes place in a cohort of 16. So Camosun or BCIT gets paid in a block for 16 bums to sit in 16 seats. But the training may start on Monday, and you might have 2 of your guys that are ready to go, and you got a new project, you got something that's gone wrong, you don't want them to go, or they don't want to go because it's a drop in income for them while they're in school. And so 4 people don't show up on Monday. So that program goes ahead with 4 empty seats, but BCIT and the other folks keep their 16, the pay for 16. They're rationalizing that. So revenue is the second piece that's critical. The third piece in my mind is a focus on successful graduates. So it goes along with this notion of why are we training people for jobs that don't exist? If we focus on the success of our graduates, whether it's high school or whether it's university or the colleges, if that's not your primary focus, then I believe you're not doing things the way that you should be doing them. And the fourth piece is responsibility. So relevance, revenue, successful grads, and responsibility. And I spread the responsibility around. So it's up to the training institutions to be responsible and government to be responsible for how they're spending their dollars. But it's also responsibility of employers. Employers have to be accountable and responsible for your own future. And if you're not hiring an apprentice, you're not building your workforce for tomorrow. One of the things we know that about 2/3 of the people working in the industry right now are going to retire in the next 4 or 5 years. We've got a gap of about 30,000 people that's going to be created. And if you're not training people now to take their place, you don't have much faith in your future. So employers have some responsibility to pick those folks up and bring them into the industry. And I know it's tough, but you can't treat them as a commodity. You gotta keep them going when work might slow down. And so that's hard in an environment where you're going into a job with 2%. So this stuff all links together in a pretty significant way. The other group that needs to be responsible are families, are parents. I think that the conversation at the family table needs to change. And here's where the cultural issue comes in. For new Canadians, because the way our immigration system has worked over the last number of years, you couldn't get into the queue if all you had was a trade certification. It was always academics, religious leaders, and professionals. And so they're not inclined to have their kid become a plumber or an electrician. So there's a cultural change that needs to take place there. And you know, I think if we had here's part of the complication. If we had a magic garage door opener, and you could go into any subdivision in any city in British Columbia and open every garage door, you know what you wouldn't see, for the most part? Tools. So I'm of a generation where I work with my brothers, I work with my dad and my uncles. We were fixing and building stuff all the time. I don't believe that happens. So there's just this experience, this tactile experience with tools doesn't exist. I spoke at a conference in Calgary yesterday with Amber Papow from Skills Canada. She told me that she actually had this experience. This is a group of 15-year-olds who did not know the difference between a screw and a nail. They've never had their hands on it. So we got a lot of work to do in that regard. But I think one of the things we focused on through our foundation and BCCA is Project Shop Class. We knew that the high school experience has changed over the last number of years, probably over the last 20 years. And you know, shop classes they're old equipment, they're scary environments, they're not safe, power saws and all that stuff, and they take up a lot of room in the school. So you take out a shop class where there might be 14 or 15 kids, and you can put 50 computer stations in. And so school boards have made those decisions over time, and shop classes have essentially disappeared. So part of our culture challenge, part of getting the tactile experience happening, is that the shop classes are either not there, or the experience that these kids are having in shop class is not a good one. So we went out to the schools, and we said, tell us what you need. Give us your shopping list, give us your wish list, and tell us what you think that's going to cost. And so they did. We had over 100 schools come back to us. The shopping list is $8.9 million, and it's everything from a $2,500 kit, a safety first aid kit, to a full-on $800,000 renovation of the existing building and new equipment. And so I want to show you what we've been able to do. This is in just the last few months. We've distributed about $2 million worth of tools in schools on the Northwest Coast and on Vancouver Island, and we're gearing up to do the same thing on the Lower Mainland and into the Southern Interior. But I want you to watch the left-hand side of the screen. They're opening up equipment. I think it's an automotive lift, but I want you to watch the reaction from the kids.
Funding in the form of tools. They are industry quality tools and the types of techniques that employers would like the students to pursue when they get employment later on.
so much more. You'll be able to learn a lot more.
A grant like this goes a long way.
The students see this new equipment here, they're going to be saying, working with the trades is cool, working with the trades is exciting.
Province needs kids to go into the skilled jobs, and this is not machines to show them what they would be doing for work.
Very optimistic about this because it's going to allow us to do some of the things over the past 4 to 5 years that we haven't been able to do.
I've been in the teaching business for 35 years. This is the first time that we've been able to achieve this type of new equipment coming to these schools, and it's all through Project Shophouse.
So I'm not sure how well you could actually hear that, but I think the message is pretty clear. I don't know, did you catch that label on that lift? It said the warranty expired in 1978. So we have, it's an ongoing fundraising campaign. If you're feeling motivated, you can go online and donate to Project Shop Class. We will have, we know that we've captured the attention of the federal government and the provincial government. I can't tell you which department because they don't want to announce it yet. But we're working with both levels of government. They see the correlation getting these kids that kind of experience. So I'm just about to wrap up. We've got 4 tables at the back today. I would invite you to have a chat. Jonathan is there with Bid Central. We've invited Dave Baspali and Grant McMillan. Now, I didn't spend much time, any time at all, in our presentation. Safety is a clear component in our strategic plan. And the role that Dave and Grant, as his advisor, play, COCA is a group that we contribute a significant amount of operational funding to. And the focus there is just Work BC. And so Dave is an asset, Grant's the asset if you've got an individual issue that's come up with an inspection officer as a group, we deal with regulation changes that are being contemplated, and it's the one place that we do have WorkSafe BC's attention at the highest executive level, and they listen, and we're able to influence in a significant way. So in case you're sufficiently motivated after hearing all the great stuff we do, we have Lisa Ehrlich and Sherry Morrell from VRCA, and they've got the little table. You guys want to just stand up or wave? And they'll be more than happy to talk to you about, the work that we're doing at the provincial level is mirrored in large measure at the regional level. So there's lots of education opportunities and that sort of thing that is provided by VRCA. And then we have our skilled workforce crews. So Faith and Jazrit and Kim are going to be at the back corner. And again, stand up, folks. There you go. And I'd encourage you to spend some time and see what they have to say. Certainly, any time you want to get in touch with me, I'm more than welcome to. You're more than welcome to give me a call, send me an email, and I would be more than pleased to further this conversation. I think, Ian, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. I do appreciate again the opportunity. I hope I didn't leave you with the same impression that I left that farmer back in Saskatchewan. But thank you very much for this opportunity.